Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contracts, service is month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Startup Garage, your source for all things startup. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Inga Petryaevskaya on the line, and she's founder and CEO over at Tvori. Inga, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adam. Thanks a lot for having me here today. Happy to join.
Oh, man, so I am so excited about today's topic. So we're going to talk about virtual and augmented realities and what the future of that looks like. I know as things change, new tools are needed. So I'm excited to get into how you're helping progress that industry. But before we do get into that, let's just get a little bit more of the background on what you're doing over at Tvori. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
Yes, so at Tvori, we are building the design and prototyping platform for actually creating spatial applications and experiences for XR. And XR means virtual and augmented realities, or as we call it, mixed reality. So we allow designers, and so we call it spatial designers, to visualize their ideas, to communicate their prototypes, to make research around UI and UX for their future apps. We do have lots of prototyping software for traditional flat screen media, but Tvori is the design and prototyping platform for immersive content and applications.
I mean, it's really exciting to me. The whole thought process of immersive content and what that looks like. What excites you right now? Because you're in a very unique space and things are moving fast. I know new tools, especially because you're dealing with spatial design. What excites you right now?
I'm absolutely excited about the fact that finally the adoption of the technology is happening today, and there is some hardware democratization happened because you already can buy a mobile headset, and you can probably even find it in Walmart, or you can definitely order that one on some like Oculus store, and you can present to your kids on the Christmas, and you don't need any PC or, let's say, additional hardware. You put a headset on and you're all set to play some games or do some creations. So this is something which really approaches finally the masses. So we were waiting for that for the last, 5 years. Mm-hmm. With AR, the hardware is coming there, but still what excites me really is that so many industries finally found some practical use cases for virtual and augmented realities. So we at Tvori are very focused on those industry use cases, so like B2B sector, and we are blown away by the number of different scenarios how companies from Fortune 500 are utilizing those technologies in healthcare, in automobile industry, in retail, the future of retail, in computer science. So it's really powerful new dimension to experience content and to interact with your content. So this is very mind-blowing.
Can you give an example of a use case scenario for something other than, because I think some of the people listening right now, so this podcast, of course, startups, focus on startups, so we cover a lot of different industries. So some of the people listening may not understand that. They may still think that virtual reality or augmented reality or these mixed reality, mixed use, that it's still just all about gaming and some of that. So I think a lot of the business people out there still don't know like some of these practical applications, which I think are awesome. Can you give us an example or so?
Yeah, so gaming is still a big portion, and some companies are very focused on gaming. So another very popular example would be VR training. Let's say public speaking, you can put on a headset and you have a crowd of people, you're standing on the stadium and you start training your public communication skills, or any other VR training for maintaining, nuclear engines, or maintaining, some oil and gas infrastructure, so that when you can really interact in VR with the device, and you can't do that in real life, for example, when you're preparing your new stuff, or your VR training to, let's say, to interact with different people and different communication, like very stressful and very realistic scenarios. So VR training is evolving for already quite some time. Another scenario is in healthcare, and I think that during the COVID there were different videos on the TV when the doctors, they had additional AR glasses, AR hardware, and then they could display some of the images, some of the additional material they have for this or that patient, or they can search for some additional stuff without leaving the room and without leaving the place they're talking to the patient. So this is pretty powerful. I think everyone was watching their SpaceX launch of the Dragon crew, and there were also lots of simulations happening in virtual reality, because you can't really simulate everything in their real life, but the cosmonauts, they had lots of training and they were utilizing VR. And for us in Tvori, it actually ends up that when you're building your VR training or your VR experience, let's say how you're gonna experience something, it's all end up with designing your environment, designing the landscape, building this world, researching the user interface, how you use it inside the VR. Will be managing all those menus and moving and teleporting and behaving. So Tvori is the platform actually which allows you to build those worlds and environments, and with animation you can simulate the entire future experience. So I hope this is more or less clear.
So, you mentioned earlier about, democratizing the use of AR, VR, and for, the end user. So obviously the consumer, the one that's putting on a headset or using a mobile device.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about the democratization of the actual, the software and or just the technology for businesses? Because I think at one point, these type of technologies, even the training side of things, that was only for Fortune 500, enterprise level companies. But now, even, smaller companies have the opportunity maybe to benefit from these types of technologies. Can you talk about a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So my strong belief is that VR gives democratization to 3D content creation. And actually, Tvori was born with the mission to democratize content creation for XR, but we can take it even broader, 3D content creation. So 3D tools are super complicated, right? I can explain it very easy. You actually have to interact with your 3D models or 3D assets on a flat two-dimensional screen. So it's to some extent pretty artificial for our brain to interact with your three-dimensional stuff on a flat two-dimensional screen, and there are lots of additional clicks and interaction with the menu. While in VR, we actually inherit our behavior from the real world. So if you want to take a cup from the table, you come to this cup and you take it. You actually grab it, put it in your hand, and that's it. So in virtual reality, we actually repeat this behavior. So in VR, you can move, you can teleport, and you grab stuff like you do in real life. And when we were building Tvori, the kind of the high level was, so it should be extremely intuitive. So intuitive that 5-year-old can jump into VR and build the whole world. It should be very kind of similar to how we interact with 3D objects and how we interact with any type of assets and objects in the real life. And democratization here is actually accessibility, meaning that really anyone can start building and animating after 10 minutes spending in the software. You don't have to learn functions and menus. I mean, you have to behave just naturally And another thing is that it actually allows to diversify the team. There are so many creative people who just don't have those 3D technical skills, right? They were not learning 3D software packages, but they're great 2D designers, for example, or they create beautiful paper sketches, right? Like great illustrators. Before that, for them to jump into the 3D world was almost impossible, or they spent like years of learning of 3D software. So today, people who were just drawing on paper or iPad, they can jump in VR and they can build in 3D. And the second dimension of that democratization is that when you're building for virtual reality or for augmented reality, if you do that on a flat screen, it's actually pretty challenging to transit after. So, for example, you build something on a flat screen and then you put on a headset and you realize that the scale is wrong, that the distance is not really like it brings like additional friction for people in VR. So when you start ideating and creating in VR for VR, it's much more natural. So that's the whole idea, to actually allow anyone tell the story in VR of the app. So right now we are focused on B2B and on XR teams that are working on those apps. But then we started 4 years ago, and we saw that just next year everyone will have a headset. It's never happened. We were pitching Tvori a little bit different way. Anyone can tell a story, meaning that Tvori is a PowerPoint of today or of the future, right? So unfortunately, the adoption and the number of headsets were not like spreading as fast, but it will definitely happen. I mean, there is no other way.
Oh, for sure. And I'll tell you one thing, you got me excited. I want to build something. I want to do something in 3D. I mean, I don't do any of this stuff, but I just want to by talking to you. I'm like, I want to do stuff.
You should, and then we will check how fast you start animating your 3D characters, for example.
Oh, I want to do some cool stuff too. You got me all excited. You're like, oh, and then you could just do this and this, and I'm like, no, you can, and other people can. I can't, but I want to. So thank you. So
you
Inga.
Can. So you just need the right tools.
So Inga, it's been awesome having you on the show today. If somebody is listening to this and they want more information on Tvori or to connect and to follow with your work, I mean, what's the best way for them to follow up?
Yeah, so definitely visit our website, which is tvori.com, which is actually tvori.com. We also have Tvori support group on Facebook. So you just search for Tvori support, and then you open this group on Facebook and you see all the creations people are sharing and building in the software. We're actually present in all the possible social media like Twitter or LinkedIn, and join the community. This is a very friendly and very great community of XR artists and designers, and this is definitely the profession of the future. So we are waiting for new people to join.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome. So, Inga, really appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been great. I appreciate you coming on Startup Garage and sharing more about what you're doing over at Tvori. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes Store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Startup Garage, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Inga, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.